Welcome to Faith Stories with Dawn DeMarco-Book. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they will see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16.
And welcome to Faith Stories. I'm Dawn DeMarco-Book. So, what is Faith Stories? Faith Stories are Christians from all walks of life who share their stories of faith, hope, and love. And my prayer is that you would come to know your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. How do you do that? Through His Word, which is the Bible. So if you need a Bible, please reach out to me at FaithStorieswDawnDeMarco-Book@gmail.com. All right, you guys, I'm going to do this every week. It's my beautiful dear friend Stacy. She passed away in September of 2024. She wrote this amazing book, and if you have any young kids, teenagers, whatever, please check this out, because it's about a young girl who got into a huge fight with her mom, ran away, and got caught up in the sex trafficking ring. It's worth the read, like $17, $18 on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And today would be Stacy's 50th birthday, so please buy her book. All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Broughton Garage Door Sales now offers you a difference with the LiftMaster Secure View Ultra Quiet Smart Opener with camera, LED 360-degree lighting, and battery backup. Built-in camera adds video and two-way audio communication to the MyQ app. You can control, secure, and monitor your garage anytime, anywhere from your smartphone. Schedule today at Broughton.com.
Just simply call Broughton. We open doors for you.
Tavilla Properties, located at 11471 West Sample Road, Suite 17, located in Coral Springs, Florida, for all your commercial needs. Call Jan at 954-341-1632. That's 954-341-1632, or visit www.tavillaproperties.com. Welcome back to Faith Stories. If you have any prayer requests, please email me at faithstorieswithdawn@gmail.com. That's faithstorieswithdawn@gmail.com. And we're back. Okay, my special guest today is Dr. Jeff Hazim, and he's going to share his story on how he came to know the Lord. So, Jeff.
Dawn.
Let's talk. So
there is a chalk line.
I know, right?
There is a chalk line when you come to the faith,
I can talk.
right?
Can you imagine being a host and you can't talk? That's not good. So let's talk about how you came to know the Lord, because you were brought up in a Catholic household and you went to Catholic private school. And when you were in the 4th grade, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Yeah. So.
And this isn't anything against Catholics. This is
just
his experience.
I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
I didn't really know all that much of what that meant.
Yeah.
Growing up, I knew the difference was you went to Catholic school instead of public school in New York City, and so that was a big thing. And I grew up in a household with pretty typical fighting parents. My dad was he liked to drink, and he liked the ponies. He liked the ponies, so he liked to gamble. So we often were in a situation where money was scarce, and yet my mother would work hard, and she had 4 children, and she put us all in private school, Catholic school.
Right.
And anyway, would go to church. It was kind of like a Easter, Christmas Catholic,
right?
Whatever. I knew about Catholicism, and in school, and then in 4th grade, I'll never forget getting taken out of the classroom in the middle of the day, brought to some office where my siblings
oh my God, I'm in trouble, what I do.
And we were removed from the class and sent home because our tuition wasn't paid.
So they had your siblings there in the office, and then...
Yeah, they were pulled out before me. They were waiting for me.
And then where was your mom in this?
She was working. So she was working.
So they literally
They just sent us... I'm sure they talked to my mom somehow. Okay. Anyway, they sent us home, and I thought in that moment, I hear a lot of things about God, but this doesn't add up. This doesn't jive with that. And I don't know if I knew the word hypocrisy in 4th grade, but it felt like it was off. And I vowed at that moment that Catholicism wasn't real, and I wanted nothing to do with this.
And you're what, like 8 or 9 years old
Yeah,
at this
fourth
point?
grade. Yeah, I graduated when I was 13, so I was, probably that. And then, but I stayed in Catholic school.
I find it fascinating, though, that they thought that was a good idea to do.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah,
I
think
really
that
wasn't
was
in their mind. I just knew that it didn't seem right to me.
No, not at all.
So I disconnected emotionally, thinking this is not real. But when I finished 8th grade and I had an option to pick a high school, I did pick a Catholic school, but that's because they had the best baseball team, and I wanted to play baseball. So
Can I ask you a question? At that point in time, were you angry with God at that point, or just angry at what had transpired?
I wasn't even thinking about God. I was just thinking whatever they're teaching me doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so I'm like, I want nothing to do with this. And I picked a Catholic school, which had, we had Bible class every year. We went to chapels and church and stuff like that, but it didn't make any.
Nothing resonated.
I just picked it because it was instead of going to public school.
Right.
To me, it was public school or Catholic school, and then I graduated and went to college, and God really wasn't on my mind much, but through my latter college years and before, by trade, I'm a chiropractor.
Right.
And so leading up to my chiropractic education, which was very, very intense, I felt like I wanted to know God. I felt like there was a God, and I wanted to know God. And especially towards my latter chiropractic years, I got into, chiropractic can be a pretty new agey profession at times. There's plenty of great Christian chiropractors.
Right. Sure.
But, it tends to have some spiritual, it attracts people that have, like the New Age world. And New Age people that are into New Age, they're very nice. They're very...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They love humanity. They want to help. They're loving people. Like, I felt like that.
Yeah.
So I was attracted to that kind of brand. And, but I had this tugging on my heart always to know God. By the time I graduated, I was only 25 years old. I got married right after that to my first wife, which was a disaster. It was a disaster going in. It was a disaster going in. I didn't know any better. We were dating since 19. Anyway, that's a different story. But all I know is I had this life. I had this amazing house in Westport, Connecticut. I had a practice. I was in private practice. I had a sports car. I had everything that you would think somebody would want.
Right, all the material things, but you still felt
completely empty.
Yeah.
Like I felt
and you were
like
married, and your wife, was she also into New Age as well?
Totally into New Age stuff.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. So then what happened?
So I was searching. I was constantly searching, and all of my life outside of my marriage, like at home in my beautiful house, life was not great. Friends were great. Other family members were great. So life was great. Practice was great. Money was great. At home, terrible. And this longing that that I was missing something.
Right.
And every time I searched for something, gurus and New Age stuff and whatever, Eastern things, every time I would come to the end of those, I would be like, yeah, this is just...
It's not working for you.
This is just not, this is garbage. Like, this doesn't add up. Like, there's something missing at the end. It's like you throw something against the wall, it can't stick. So it was in this constant cycle.
You were searching constantly for
searching.
something.
I can remember, I had this big clinic, and one room was this big room with skylights and trees in it. And I remember one day in the middle of patients, like in the middle of the day, where it was like lunch break, standing in the middle of the room and like putting my hands up and like crying out to somebody saying, I know you're real. I don't know who you are. I will do anything to know the truth of who you are. Like that was literally the prayer in my heart. And I didn't know who I was praying to. I just knew I was desperate. And then one day I was like maybe a couple years into practice, living in
So how much time you did that, but then how much time until that next?
So New Agey stuff started like midway through school. So it was a couple of years of that, a couple of years of being in practice, and roughly, they say 2.5 years, maybe, give or take. I was in my beautiful house, actually in my backyard in Westport, Connecticut, and I heard in my heart, in my mind, these words: read the Gospels. Now, I didn't know then what I know now, that was God speaking. I didn't like, oh, God spoke to me. I just knew I had that impression. Now, as a former Catholic, I knew what the Gospels were. I had a Bible.
Because you were taught
Because who doesn't have a Bible, right? So I had a Bible.
Ah, but do you read it?
So I read it.
There's a big difference. You can own a Bible, doesn't mean you read it.
Exactly. So I read the Gospels. I don't think it took me more than a few days to read all four Gospels.
Okay.
And when I was finished, this is the moment that changed everything. I hadn't gone to any church. I hadn't been to any services or anything like that. I was in my room, and I remember thinking this precise thing. I believe everything I just read. I believe Jesus is who he says he is. Jesus is the one I'm looking for.
Right.
I must be a Christian. That was my, matter of fact, I might have even thought born again, although I didn't really know what that meant.
That terminology,
But I remember thinking, I must be a Christian. And in the moment, that moment, that I acknowledged that I believed in Jesus, whatever I had just read, it was like the whole world went from black and white to color. It was like every anxiety and every question that I'd asked over the years, like, I want to know who you are, I just need to know the truth, was answered in an instant. Every feeling that I didn't know the answer disappeared.
Wow.
And everything became bright. Now, my life with my ex-wife, who's my ex-wife now, was still the same. All the living situations stayed the same. But I had such peace and joy knowing that I'd found the truth, and I became a voracious Bible reader and Bible studier instantly, like literally. Had a friend who took me to his church, which I'd never been to, Times Square Church in New York City.
Oh yeah, that's a very popular
I would literally drive from Connecticut twice a week to go down to Broadway in New York to go to church, and it was like a wild, amazing scene of gospel singers and praying in tongues and just unbelievable messages that would blow you back in your chair. I would feel literally like
drop the mic. No.
Mic drop. I would literally feel like I was stuck to the chair, my hair was blowing back, and then I would stagger out of church, and it would happen like multiple times a week, and I couldn't get enough of it.
Isn't that's so powerful.
That was the whole beginning of my faith walk, and it was a year into this. I'll never. This is another moment. I thought to myself, and again, I didn't know what it meant to go to church and somebody to tell you, oh, you need Jesus. I only knew this experience.
Right, which is so powerful in and of itself,
Correct.
Jeff. I mean, to have that experience, because most people will come to know him through, well, and you can't put God in a box. That's the thing. He meets you, I always say this, he meets you where you are, but doesn't keep you where you are, because he's going to take you where he wants you to go, right?
Correct. And so, you know, I'm living this born again life. I'm on fire for Jesus. Like, I can't get enough. I can't hear worship without crying. I can't go to sermons without getting wrecked, like over and over and over again. And like a year in, somebody says to me, oh, when did you pray the sinner's prayer? And back then, this is going to date me, but back then, there was no like Bible apps and so on and so forth.
Right, you couldn't just like Google it, right?
The cell phones were this big. They had
They
one
were,
color.
like, huge.
They had one color on the screen.
My brother had one of those big old ones.
And so I remember having a Strong's Concordance, that big thick book, and I kept looking up sinner's prayer, and I'm like, I can't find it. I can't find it. I don't know what a sinner's prayer is, and I'm just too embarrassed to ask somebody what that meant. So eventually figured it out. But then I realized, you know,
you had already done that, though.
I'd already done that. And then
you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to say the sinner's prayer. You already gave your life to Christ.
In that moment, I said, I believe Jesus is who he says he is.
Right.
I believe
That's
what
it.
I just read in these Gospels. He's the one I've been looking for.
Right.
And here's the thing, what I realized over the years. So now we're talking 32 years ago. 32 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say, in 32 years, I've never had a day in 32 years where I wasn't so in love with God and so on fire and so desperate to know more. Like in 32 years, I've never experienced, I don't understand what it means to not want to read the Bible, not want to learn, and so I realized over the years, like I look back, okay, of course, I went back and I say, well, that was clearly God speaking.
Right.
Read the Gospels. Okay, that was God's voice. Okay, now I know what that sounds like. And as I've realized, you know, and understanding and study theology and teaching the Bible over the years, I realized that that was God's grace at work.
Oh,
that
gosh,
whole
yes.
time,
No doubt.
that whole time, God was tugging on my heart, calling me, speaking to me. I didn't know, but he was preparing me. And I was searching here and said, nope, that's
Right.
not it. And I was searching here. And the
Isn't
moment
that the
I
truth?
went
Yep.
and found the truth. Now again, as a Catholic, I knew about Jesus. I knew about the Gospels. And then I did go through this period of feeling really ripped off by the Catholic Church. I was like, all you had to do is explain it to me. Like, explain a born-again experience with me.
Relationship.
And this is what I've been saying over the years, and I'll speak about Jesus anywhere to anyone at any time. But, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of people think they know the Lord and don't know the Lord. And I always just ask, look, just tell me this. Tell me about your born-again encounter with Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't explain that,
Yeah.
like, you can't meet Jesus and be the same the next moment. Something
you change.
happens,
and you
you'll
change
know what that
for
means.
the good, because you want to share him, you know, and you want people to know who he is and how he can save you from destitution and just the stuff that you walk through living life on earth, right?
100%. So some years after that, I meet my wife. My ex-wife leaves me. It's funny because I even before I was a Christian, I didn't think I would ever get divorced. I just said, listen, I made a decision. I married her, even though I knew I shouldn't have at the time. I did anyway, and I was going to stick with it. And then I became a Christian during that, and I'm like, well, now I'm definitely going to stick with it.
Now you're not equally yoked.
And she
but
came to me
yeah.
a few years into that and said, I want a divorce.
Yeah.
And so, not to belabor that story, I let her go.
Right.
I gave her everything, and I move on. A year later, I meet my wife, my current wife.
Which will be on next week, and we'll hear her
26.
story.
We just celebrated 26 years of marriage.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
And I meet her, and she, I met her on a mission trip in Central America. You know, same love for the Lord, and
that's what I love about God, because
Exactly.
it's like he knows the moment he knitted you in your mother's womb, right? And he knew that you're going to meet your future wife, Andrea, at that mission trip.
100%.
Oh my
My
gosh,
friend, who became my
details.
Christian friend, who took me to church, and to this day is my friend. Might text me, matter of fact, on the way here. Been friends for many, many years. He told me one day, this is like a year before I met my wife, he says, we have to pray for our wives. And of course, I came out of this thing, which I knew nothing, zero.
Right, about
I didn't know what it
praying and
meant.
asking, right?
I didn't even know what a good marriage looked like. I only knew I never saw one, never experienced
Right,
one,
'cause
I
your
didn't have
parents-
one.
Right?
And so I didn't know what that meant, but I started meeting with him Fridays. We would meet together to pray for our unknown wives.
Our future
and,
wives.
And a few months into that, I started getting a vision of the feelings I had when I was romantic feelings, not sexual feelings, like romantic feelings of what it would be like to be in love.
Yeah.
Like remembering what it was like when I was a teenager, like dreaming about meeting a girl and so on and so
Right.
forth. And I started praying those things, what it would be like when I met her, what it would be like to love her, what it would be like to be attracted to her, and comparing these things to the feelings I had in this previous life, and saying, I never want that again. And I said, God, I'd rather be single than that.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be in a bad relationship.
Never again.
You know, I mean, it doesn't do either one of you any good, you know, and that's not what God wants for you anyway. He wants you to be equally yoked.
I'd like to say, Dawn, I would have stayed with her if she wouldn't have left me, because I was committed to do that. I don't know if it would have been any different, and I don't know if that's actually even true. I mean,
Right.
I know then I was saying that, but the opposite then is that I prayed, I said, Lord, I want to be more in love and more attracted to my wife every day the rest of my life.
Right.
And that was 28
26 years ago?
Well, we've been married 26 years, so that prayer was a year and change before that. And that's what it's been like. So we moved to Florida, and
So were you still married when you met Andrea?
No.
Okay, so you were
No.
done with your wife
a
at the
year
time.
later,
Okay,
give or take,
okay.
right? Just a year. And but a year of prayer with my friend. Now, I
Right.
had a vision now.
Listen, I prayed 13 years for
Yeah,
my husband.
exactly.
So
So when I met,
was like, what?
When I met my wife, when I met her, I wasn't necessarily looking, but I had been praying.
Right.
And everything I prayed about, how I would meet her and how I would know, like it all happened in an instant. So it was very fast. Like we were married from the day I told her May 27th, 1998. We were married 7 months later.
Oh, wow, that is fast.
And
Woo!
when we met.
There you go. Go God.
But I told her 5 days after we met, so it was pretty amazing. So her answer was, I said, you're going to marry me and spend the rest of your life with me. And she said, that sounds crazy, but I think you're right. And so
I think that's so incredible.
So that's 27 plus years ago that we had that conversation. Anyway, we moved to Florida after she finishes school. And then, I'm in practice.
And you're both chiropractors,
Both
by the way.
chiropractors.
Yeah,
right?
hello.
So we set up a practice here, and then, I'm in practice for many years. And in 2004, God calls me to write a book about things that I've been learning in my faith. And I'm like, I'm not an author. What am I, and God, I write that book anyway. And I start getting the feeling like this end to professional practice is going to happen at some point. And I started actually even desiring it. That book is published in 2006. I thought I was going to leave practice then, but as God has it.
God's timing, not ours.
Not my timing.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, not yet. Well, that took 7 more years. And so in 2013, I left practice and spent most of that time in kind of like parachurch ministry-ish. And
What is that parachurch?
Meaning I wasn't operating a church. I was just doing ministry activities.
Oh, okay. Thank you
not
for
a
clarifying that, because I wasn't
then,
quite sure what that
then
meant.
I started having friends say, we need to start a church. And I was like, yeah, not me. I'm not doing that.
And then God laughs.
And then I did that for a while. I said, when the Lord says, and then the Lord said.
That's the thing
I didn't
about
necessarily
God.
like it, but that happened.
It's like, okay, I want you to do
And
this,
then
and
in
you have no
2009
choice.
Yeah, so in 2019, I went from Dr. Jeff to Pastor Jeff. I couldn't even say Pastor Jeff. I couldn't even say it. I was like, this is the most bizarre thing. But I did love the Word, and I did love to teach. And I knew I could teach the Bible, and I knew I could disciple young people, or any people.
Right.
And so I just launched into that. That became our new life. I literally left practice. I still have a chiropractic license. I still have some patients because I do nutrition and consulting and stuff like that. But it's very few hours a week, and most of it is just ministry and counseling and discipling and so on and so forth. That's my full-time life.
Is it really? Okay, so you guys do church on Friday, right?
Friday night.
Friday night, and it's in your home?
In my home. That wasn't the original plan. I love the home church. I mean, it's literally a formal church.
It's beautiful. It is a beautiful setting.
It's a beautiful
to host
setting.
A church.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
There's ups and downs to it. Like some people think home church is not real church. I mean, we literally have a church time, worship time. Like it goes on. Like if I travel and leave, it still happens. I have a co-pastor. Like everything. The home is a facility. But the home also gives you that like first century feeling.
Right, because that's
which
what
is really amazing.
Read the Bible, read the
And
before,
so it has
like
its its ups and downs. Right?
building.
Your house is a center. Like I mean, it's like the other day I came home and there was somebody in my backyard, just using my backyard. Now, we live like that because we're like, hey, it's like a community center and people take us seriously. They use it like a community center. So. Like we have one of those. It used to be a key. Remember the key? Now there's a code on the door.
Number.
Every once in a while, my wife and I are like, maybe we should change the code on the door, but we're not going to do that.
No.
You just feel that way sometimes. Every once in a while. Anyway, so church on Friday night. That was something that happened like, I want to say, the first year we moved to Florida. I was having I wasn't scheduling it, but I had this time with the Lord. And I all of a sudden, so you hear my testimony. I've never felt away from God, but I did have a season in like 2001 where I felt like all of a sudden I was missing something. But none of my external life, you would think, none of it made sense. Like I was married, had one child at the time, was in love with my wife, had a great practice, loved the church we were going to at the time. Like I didn't have any external reasons, no prevailing sin. I wasn't like hiding anything, like nothing. But all of a sudden I felt like I was missing something. And it was like a 5.5 month period that I went through that period of time. And it culminated with, in a way, by visiting the chiropractor that was working for me. And the chiropractor that was working for me was a young Jewish girl who my wife knew a little bit in school, and she had come to the Lord towards the end of her schooling. So she was raised like a Reformed Jew, came to Jesus, called my wife when she moved back from Atlanta to Miami to ask her about how to deal with the New Age prevalence inside the chiropractic world as a new Christian. And she was about to take a job in an office that was a little New Agey. And she said, call Jeff. He's been in practice for a lot of years as a Christian. And so I called her. And
Let's pause it there because we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
All right.
Broughton Garage Door Sales now offers you a difference with the LiftMaster Secure View Ultra Quiet Smart Opener with camera, LED 360-degree lighting, and battery backup. Built-in camera adds video and two-way audio communication to the MyQ app. You can control, secure, and monitor your garage anytime, anywhere from your smartphone. Schedule today at broughton.com.
Just simply call Broughton. We open doors for you.
Tavilla Properties, located at 11471 West Sample Road, Suite 17, located in Coral Springs, Florida, for all your commercial needs. Call Jan at 954-341-1632. That's 954-341-1632, or visit www.tavillaproperties.com. Welcome back to Faith Stories. If you have any prayer requests, please email me at faithstorieswithdawn@gmail.com. That's faithstorieswithdawn@gmail.com. Okay, Jeff, let's wrap that sucker up.
Yes, we'll land the plane.
So she called you.
So she called me, and instead of, I said, well, I've got a great idea. Why don't you just work for me? I hired her. She became a friend of the family. Eventually, she got married. Her husband became one of my best friends. This is 20 plus years ago. But anyway, what happened during that little season of my life after this 5 months of trying to figure out what was going on is we were down in Miami at the aquarium with my little baby son, and we stopped in to see her at her mother's house. She was visiting her mom in Miami. Her mom was a Jewish believer also, and on the television was a program running, like a cassette tape, or called something like Seeing Jesus in the Feasts of the Lord. And so as soon as I saw the first set of imagery about Jesus and the feast, I didn't know what the Feasts of the Lord were. I was a Christian 10 years, I still didn't know what they were.
There's all new things always.
Anyway, I literally locked onto that. God spoke to me and said, that's what you've been missing. And I started studying the Hebrew roots of Christianity and how that was. So eventually became like the rich part of my faith. And so when we started the church, we put it on Friday night, mostly because of the Sabbath.
Right.
But also because it was convenient for us to do that. But yeah, that became that. And so that when we teach in the church, we teach the Hebrew roots of our faith, we teach about discipleship, we teach about the kingdom, and we teach about the authority of the prophetic understanding of the scriptures. Like that's kind of the pillars of what we teach.
Awesome.
It's very intellectual. It's like a Bible college. My wife calls it more of a Bible college than anything.
I know my husband would love that.
I print like extensive notes. Like an average set of notes for a sermon is somewhere between 30 and 100 pages.
Wow.
Literally.
So if someone wanted to go to your church, what do they do?
Well, you just show up.
Show up?
Well, yeah. You
go
don't have
to
to
the
be
website.
KingdomEmbassyMinistries.org.
Awesome.
Kingdom, just like it's at KingdomEmbassyMinistries.org. The service times are on there. All the messages are there, videos, notes, everything, all available.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was so good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
So my next week's guest is actually his beautiful wife, Dr. Andrea Hazim, and she'll be sharing her story on how she came to know the Lord. So I'm looking forward to next week at 3 o'clock. Don't forget, please join us, and also share, and check out social media. We'll see you next week, you guys, at 3 o'clock. Have a blessed week.
Thank you for watching Faith Stories, where you will hear stories of hope, faith, and love. Please join us next week, and remember, God meets you where you are, but doesn't leave you where you are.